So what brings you out tonight on this fine summer evening? Was it the air conditioning?
Yeah.
The snacks? Or did we have you at the word innovation?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's still a pretty juicy word, right? It's still got a little seductive power to it. But what does it really mean? Any linguists here?
Something new and different.
Something new. The root is the word nova, right? The Latin word nova for new. So literally to bring something new into the world. I just had to get that out there because, I don't know, seems like the word gets a little misused and overused sometimes. Not to point fingers, but particularly along the 101 corridor, where maybe a few more gigaflops or a few fewer nanoseconds passes as innovation, and where there's any number of young startups willing to tell you that they're the new Google or the new Facebook, right? So rather than talk about that kind of iterative change, tonight I'm very happy to say we have a panel here who are truly innovating, truly bringing new things into the world, new ideas, new solutions, new processes, and new methods of making these things into reality. So that's what we got. We've got some wonderful folks here really quickly. One of the co-founders of Burning Man. As I was explaining to somebody in Valley terms, if Burning Man had badge numbers, his would be 1 digit, okay? Next to him is Ilana Lipset, one of the co-founders of Free Space, another interesting phenomenon that has taken off and grown rather explosively very much in the Burning Man mold, spreading from one space to, what is it, we're up to 18 now that are in operation or planned around the world, creating spaces for people to come together to do these crazy things together. Dr. North? Sorry, I'm moving too fast. Ilana, thank you, Ilana, for showing up. Dr. North, his reputation precedes him. You may have seen him on television. Anybody watch Discovery Channel? No, nobody's going to admit to watching television in this audience. But if you were to watch Prototype This or several other shows, you might have seen Dr. North. I'm a fan of his work more for his work on the social side, bringing tech solutions to address problems like homelessness, which could use a little bit of help. So thanks for showing up, Dr. North. And on the far end of the panel, another person I'm a huge fan of, Karen Cusolito, who is an artist that I think really personifies very much if you're going to call anything Burning Man art, the epic sculptures that she brings out to the playa that merge themes of industrialism and organic nature with lots and lots of spectacular fire are some of my very favorite things. Also runs an amazing space over in West Oakland you may have heard of called American Steel, which provides studio space, gallery space for like 100 different people and has really helped revitalize the neighborhood. So thanks for showing up, Karen. Okay, so now you know who we all are. The way this is going to work is that each of our panelists is going to have a little time to expound upon what they're doing in the world, to bring new things to light. After that, we'll have a few kind of broad discussion topics where we'll let them discuss a few kind of large issues, and then we're really looking forward to hearing your questions. So use those index cards and think about your best questions. But let's start with Danger Ranger and see what he has to say. Michael?
Well, I could certainly tell the history of Burning Man, having been there 27 times. Yeah, Burning Man started on a beach in San Francisco in 1986 when Jerry James and Larry Harvey put together an 8-foot-tall stick figure and took it down to Baker Beach, and they burned it, and people just came. But actually, Burning Man has roots that go a lot deeper into the Bay Area. I was involved with an organization called the Cacophony Society. The Cacophony Society was basically a social network that existed at that time. We would get together every month and we would do wild, crazy things, going into places we weren't supposed to be, urban explorations. And I heard about this thing that was going to happen on the beach, I don't know, a bunch of pagans or something, and I got involved. And even the Cacophony Society has deeper roots that go back to Communiversity, which is a free school where anybody could teach a class, and that's going back to the early 70s. So the roots and the history that we've built upon, this whole area is built upon, go really, really deep. Myself, I grew up in Texas. I came out here in the service. I got out and I got involved with Silicon Valley at the beginning of the personal computer revolution, which was really exciting. I worked for Fairchild Semiconductor. My background is electromechanical systems. I built robots for Apple Computer at one time. But the most fascinating thing I got involved with was Burning Man. And so we decided to do it after that first one, to keep on doing it. And each year it grew and grew and grew. In 1990, we showed up with, I don't know, a couple thousand people and this 4-story wooden figure. And the park police came by and said, "Where's your permit?" We didn't have no permit. So it was our first real interaction with authority in the status quo. And we said, okay, what we'd like to do is have a party. We won't burn it. So they let us erect it. We had a great party, and then we dismantled it. And 2 months later, we heard about this place out in Nevada, this vast, barren place. We actually watched a video where there was this giant croquet game, and the croquet ball was like this 8-foot diameter balloon. And for mallets, they were using pickup trucks. I said, we could burn a man there. So a couple months later, we took the man out to the Black Rock Desert, and we burned it out there. There were maybe 20 of us, and each year it kept doubling or tripling as the numbers grew. Up until last year, when we had close to 70,000 people. And Burning Man has become one of the largest cultural and art events that exist. We also have an incredible record for Leave No Trace. We literally build a city, and we live in it for 8 days, and after that, we completely remove it, leaving no trace. And the unique thing about the Black Rock Desert, which is about 1,000 square miles, there's nothing there. It's a unique feature, an old dry lake bed. And after we've cleaned up, the winter rains come and they erase our very footprints. So I think we can teach the world a lot about how to take care of the earth. We can teach the world a lot about art, and we can teach the world about community. Burning Man is one of the most diverse international communities that exist on the planet for 1 week. And I'm really happy to be here.
All right, thank you very much. Ilana?
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so I want, for everybody who has been to Burning Man, and even those of you who haven't, just take a minute and imagine yourself in a space on the playa where there's art around, there's inspiration, you find what you need, you find the people that you need, and you really get inspired to express your passion and express yourself. And now take that same feeling, that same idea that you get what you need, the playa provides for you on Burning Man, and imagine it in a 14,000 square foot warehouse in downtown San Francisco. And that is free space. So last year, almost exactly a year ago, inspired by the National Day of Civic Hacking, a group of organizers, a group of technologists, entrepreneurs, burners, community folks, came together to celebrate National Day of Civic Hacking, to get engaged in our communities, and got this building for $1 for the month of June. And for those of you who are familiar with San Francisco real estate, this is no small feat. And part of the inspiration for this came from this National Day of Civic Hacking. The federal government was actually encouraging people all over the country in their communities to address civic challenges, to take government data, to take technology, to bring them together, to come up with solutions. And here we are in the center of the technological world in Silicon Valley. We know that technology can alter our world, for better or for worse. And we wanted to experiment with this idea that people can also have the same impact and can have that type of change and impact on a community. And so we were able to get this space and provide it to the community to come together and to re-engage in their community in a different way. So what is free space? It's a physical space that's gifted to the community. It's a place for a community-driven incubator that works on long-term social impact projects. We say that it's a place to foster creativity, community, and civic innovation. And it's a big experiment in providing infrastructure and no structure. So as I mentioned, we began a year ago. We opened our doors on June 1st of last year with 2 rules, no alcohol and no money. And like any good organization, we decided we also needed principles to live by, so we came up with some principles also addressing these values that we wanted to keep in the space. Everything is free, that it's participatory, no ego, no logo, really this space to be free and to express your passion and to do what you want. And so we opened our doors on June 1st of this big warehouse, a literal and figurative blank canvas for artists, for creatives, for community members, for entrepreneurs to come together and be inspired and see what would happen from there. So what was going to be after 1 month, we had hosted 119 free events. We saw the beginnings of 8 long-term social impact projects that included a free bike share program, a pop-up urban garden, a maker skills training program for homeless adults. And we saw this community come together and donate their time, their creativity, their art, their things, everything from couches to chairs to AV equipment to curtains to you name it. We had everything provided based on this kind of labor of love. And so here we are almost at our first year anniversary, and we've touched thousands of lives around the world and spread in what I would like to think is a very similar way to how Burning Man has spread. People reached out to us and said, you know, we've heard about what you're doing. We want to open a free space in our community. We want to have the same impact. And so some examples of this, of people that have been touched by free space, we've had a number of artists who were able to use the space to make a mural for the first time or do an installation, and someone else coming through the space noticed their work and hired them for commission. We had people working in technology companies coming through the space and telling us that they refound their soul by being in this creative environment with a new community, with people that they never would have met before. We've had homeless people come through the space and find a new community that has allowed them to re-engage in society and find employment and find community and find inspiration. And what we're doing, you know, in a similar vein as Burning Man is really changing the narrative about the way that we interact with our communities and the way that we interact with our world, that the story is not about money, that real estate doesn't have to go to the highest bidder, that urban development, that policy planning doesn't have to depend on money and those who have the money to influence change, that it really can be based on the most engaged and the most passionate communities. Another story that I think free space is changing is right now in San Francisco and throughout all of Silicon Valley. I'm sure you're aware of the growing media narrative of these class wars between the technology community and the rest of the community. And free space is really providing an alternative to that, providing a space that's safe, that's creative, that's neutral, that's a third space where people can come together and see each other as fellow human beings. And Stuart mentioned this, bringing technologists and homeless service providers together. We hosted an event a couple months ago, bringing together 12 nonprofit service providers with tech workers to address challenges that they were facing and help them come up with new tech solutions to help them increase their capacity. But more than that, what we did was start a conversation and allow these diverse groups of people to come together, to talk to each other, to drop the labels that they've given to themselves and to the other people, and really start to build a strong community. And so really creating this space for radical inclusion. And so now, you know, as with Burning Man, I think there's an urgency and a magic to the idea of temporary. Every space that we've been in so far has been temporary. And as we look towards expanding and growing, we're, you know, opening in spaces around the world, we're looking to channel that momentum and that excitement into long-term social impact projects. And so, for example, at this activation that we held, the activation for the homeless, there was a man in a wheelchair who came into our opening event on Friday night named Jim Murray, and kind of asked what was going on and saw that it was a lot of techie-looking people and asked us if he was invited to stay. We said, of course, you can come and stay. He said, I have this idea that I've been thinking about. I've been homeless. I live in a SRO now, affordable housing unit. I never really get to talk to anybody else, but I have this idea. And so he shared with us his idea, which is to essentially create a digital billboard in downtown San Francisco where lines of homeless people line up and can see this billboard and not only access information about social services that are available, but also have access to entertainment and to interacting with other people, maybe music or a show or having something on the screen that's visually pleasing and make it artistic and use that idea of art to draw people in. And so what we've done is built a team to help him see this project through to reality. And we are able to do that because we have such a diverse group of people that are coming through Free Space that we've gotten to know, that have shared their skills and their talents and their passions. And so we were able to draw on this group of people that are going to build a hardware project for him and program it to create this new visually pleasing service for the community, which is really exciting. And so I think that the impact that this is having at an urban level is really exciting, to be able to take the concepts of Burning Man off Playa and allow people to be creative and be passionate and do what they want and what they can do in a space that's free of other people's logos, that's free of money, that's free of kind of the regular way that we go through life. And so, because this is Innovation Week, and because I'm sure that you guys will all get a lot of ideas and have creativity and passion already, I want to invite you to come tomorrow to a design charrette that's to redevelop the empty lots that are at 3rd Avenue and El Camino Real. There's going to be 2 design charrettes, one at 12:30 and one at 5:30. So this is your chance to live out what you want to do, to bring your creativity and passion into the world and to do it now and to do it together.
All right, we can do this one of 2 ways. I can tell you about all the things I'm doing, or I can tell you a story. Who votes for tell you about stuff? Who goes for story? Yeah. All right. God, I was hoping that. I don't like talking about things. I like telling stories. And usually my stories involve family, because family really, they get to the core of me and things I do. So after I graduated from high school, I was kind of hanging out, and I had this really cool older brother that went to UC Santa Barbara, and he was kind of, he's my older brother, he's cool. And he called me up, and he said, "Hey, Mike, do you want to go camping?" And I was like, "Oh my God, my older brother's calling me to go camping? He's like the coolest guy, he's in college." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, what do I need to bring?" He's like, camping stuff, tent, sleeping bag, cooler. I'm like, okay, I'll get it ready. He drives up from Santa Barbara, where he was going to school, and he picks me up, and we jump in his little BMW, and he drives me out to Burning Man. Camping. I was 18, this is 1995, and it was kind of the Wild West back then. And that experience just opened my eyes to who I was. I'd realized I'd been living this kind of pre-programmed life through high school and get the grades and all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't me. And I discovered this whole community of people, and my eyes were like wide open. And came back, and I just started college. And much to the dismay of my parents, I dropped out of college. I never blamed Burning Man for it. But I did drop out of college, and I was like, you know what, this isn't for me. There's so much more out there. I just met all these interesting people doing amazing things. I'm gonna take off, and I'm gonna go around the world. I'm gonna find me. I'm gonna live my life. Well, after traveling around the world and reading way too much Jack Kerouac for my own good, I ended back in my hometown shoveling rock. Like literally, I had a job where I shoveled rock. I was like, yeah, this wasn't exactly what I was thinking. So I ended up going back to college and really went back to college, passionate about it and passionate about finding myself within that structure. And I did that But every summer, I had that beautiful reprieve, that moment when I got to go out and really refresh on who I was and go out and experience with my friends. It was that renewal. It was that renewal with the community. And that continued to fuel me, and I had to do it every summer while I was going through it. Actually, I studied micro electromechanical systems. So you have two electromechanical engineers sitting on this panel. Kind of curious.
Let's go make something.
Yeah. Until one year, I was so inspired what everyone was creating. I came back and I decided that the next year for Burning Man I was going to do something. And this was the year I graduated. And that year, my grandmother. This is my grandmother. My grandmother, her name is Grandbecca because her name is Rebecca. So we called her Grandbecca, not to be confused with the other grandmother. I forget her name. It's grandmother. See, Grandbecca, you got to go. Good branding. And Grandbecca was one of the world's. She's the one that kind of brought orchids to the mainstream. She wrote a book called Home Orchid Growing, which was the breakout group book for people to learn how to create their own orchids. She's literally the lady in the 50s. Grew up like in Wyoming. She was in the 50s in the jungle of Costa Rica with a 357 on her side, discovering new orchids. And she wrote this book, and she said something to me once, and it's always stuck with me. She said, "Michael, you never discover who you are and what you're going to do in life by just sitting there thinking about it. You just got to get out there and start doing something. And that thing is going to lead to the next thing, and it's going to lead to the next thing, and it's going to lead to the next thing." And I was like, oh, okay. So when I graduated from college, she gave me a check for $500. And most of my friends were going to Europe with the money that people gave them. I decided that I was going to take that money and build a motorized Viking ship. That's what I wanted to do, and this is going to lead to something. So I toiled away for a month in Santa Barbara and built this, 30-foot-long Viking ship in the dirt and spent all the money and then found some more and spent all that and got things donated and rallied a whole community around it, all my friends in Santa Barbara. Then I got all my friends from Northern California together, and then we built up this whole camp and organized the whole thing and then drove the ship from Santa Barbara. We designed it to be taken apart so we could take it apart and then drive it there. But by the time we were finished, we're like, that's way too much work. Let's just drive it as is. And actually, not that many people know this, but I actually hold the world's land speed record for a Viking ship. At which point, I'm doing about 95 in this thing, and it's starting to kind of float. I'm not sure if I can control it much longer. And I look over, and there's a highway patrol next to me. And he's looking over at me, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, ah! He's like, ah! It had a big dragon head on it and a flamethrower. It was kind of intimidating. But there was this moment of like bringing everyone together and rallying them around this incredibly creative thing. And I didn't, really think that would lead to much. I was, in grad school, getting a PhD and all that, and having a good time doing it. And then when I graduated, and I had no idea what I was going to do. This is the dilemma of all PhDs. You're like, oh, now what? I'm really educated, but only to do this really specific thing, and I don't want to do that anymore. Oh. And so you do what any good PhD does, you do a postdoc. So I was camping out in this postdoc, and just out of nowhere, I get a phone call. It says, I'm like, hello? They're like, is this Dr. North? I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, this is the Discovery Channel. How would you like to host a primetime TV show inventing crazy machines? Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, it's about right. It's better than being a professor or industry. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, okay, well, tell me about the show. And like, well, we want to invent things. We want to invent things that everyone wants, no one's ever seen before, and really hard to make. I'm like, okay, this sounds challenging. And they're like, and then for each episode, we want to cut between two different things, and we want to shoot an episode every week. I'm like, you want me to invent something everyone wants, no one's ever seen before, and is really hard to make twice a week? I got them down to one thing every 2 weeks. Yeah, and then the next challenge was like, okay, where are we going to do the show? And they're like, well, should we do it in L.A.? I'm like, no, there's not a lot of innovation in L.A. Let's go to San Francisco. I just wanted to live in San Francisco instead of L.A. That's where all the innovation is. They're like, all right. They come up here, and they found and you'll appreciate it. They found this like little warehouse for us to build things in, and I go over to look at it, and it only has 110 power. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Big, impossible things, 110 power. And so ultimately I said, okay, let me go find a warehouse. And so I ended up calling the city of San Francisco. I'm like, new Discovery show, prime time, right after Mythbusters. What do you got? And they're like, oh, we have this warehouse out on Treasure Island with beautiful cityscape views. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. Let's go for that. And so there was this whole process of building up this kind of state-of-the-art fabrication shop out on Treasure Island on this warehouse with lots of space and these beautiful views. So we ended up doing the show, but all of a sudden we had to make these really crazy things, right? Like highly creative, like really blows people's minds. Like, where do you find people that actually work on projects like that? Burning Man. It was actually kind of cool. It became the show where you get to bring all your friends in from Burning Man and make stuff and then put it on Discovery Channel. It was all right. And actually, when the show collapsed, we only did one season, because when you make things like, 3-story tall waterside simulators, you kind of go over budget and over time, significantly. And now that warehouse has actually been adopted by the Burning Man community. And it's the home of Marco Cochran, who does Bliss Dance, the beautiful sculptures, and Peter Hudson, who does the big zoetropes. And so it's this kind of epicenter that's been left in its wake of art and culture. And it's cool to see it thrive to this very day. And so after the show, I was kind of like, yeah, the show was cool. We're making all this good stuff. But, there was something kind of missing. Like, as cool as a waterside simulator is, can everyone say waterside simulator? I was giving a talk at Fukushima High School. It's in Japan. And I had a picture of this crazy-looking contraption up. I'm like, and this is a waterside simulator. Just blank faces. And I had a translator there. And I was like, could you translate waterside simulator for me? Kid you not. She's like, hi. Waterside simulator. Whole audience. Oh! now I can say I speak Japanese. Like, couldn't we do something more with this? And one day I was approached by an organization, by one of the board members, and said, I work with this organization called Miracle Feet, and our mission is to treat kids in developing countries with clubfoot. So does everyone know what clubfoot is? Clubfoot, it's a birth defect where your feet are born in and under. It's very debilitating. And there's a non-surgical way to treat it that's 95% successful. Involves kind of stretching the feet, casting, stretching, and casting. And you're actually able to manipulate the feet into the correct position. Problem is that you need to wear a brace every night for the first 5 years of your life. A whole series of braces, because feet grow, kids grow, braces need to grow with them. And those braces are expensive, like $500 a pop. And so he said, our nonprofit can't afford this. We need to have a cheaper brace. And he showed me the current braces. He's like, you know some stuff about design and prototyping. Would you be interested in working on this? I looked at it. I'm like, yeah. I kind of thought, like, back on the show, what we do is bringing all my Burning Man friends in to help out. And by the way, my Burning Man friends are like experts in design, fabrication, engineers, some of the best people out there. I thought, well, we could do this too. So I started calling up my friends and said, hey, Ryan, you run the prototyping shop at Burton Snowboards. You might know a thing or two about bindings, and you interested in being involved? He's like, sure. I called up a 3D printing company. Could you donate all the 3D printing? Pretty soon had this great cadre of people working together on this project to make a low-cost, inexpensive brace for treating kids with clubfoot. And so 9 months later, we had a prototype of it. So this is a 3D printed prototype. This one's seen a little bit of wear. And actually got to go down to Nicaragua, to Managua, and actually to a clinic in Managua. And I don't know if you've been to a clinic in Managua, but it's not the happiest place on earth. I mean, Managua was wiped out by an earthquake, and it's pretty dire. But in this clinic, they just met the sweetest, nicest people, and they're bringing their kids in, and they don't even know that this is something that they can fix or something that's even wrong. Like, the education around the whole thing it's even a little off. And they bring them in, and there's this one kid who came in completely crying, and I'm actually literally working with the kids, because this isn't a hospital in the United States where there's all these protocols. Like, literally, they're hands-on, and there came this moment where this kid was kind of crying and had this brace, And this braces a lot of technology, a lot of 3D printing, a lot of expertise, a lot of people coming together to make this happen. And there's this kid, and put it together, I'm like, this kid's gonna walk because of this. This is life-changing. This is incredible. And so something happened to me there. It was this moment where it's not like happiness, but it was definitely the most elated state I've ever been in my life, of just absolute complete meaning. And so I came back to the United States, and I would tell my friends, my engineering friends, my PhD friends, about this totally transformative experience that I had. And all of them said, wow, I would love to work on something like that. Then I would go talk to other nonprofits, and they'd be like, oh, well, we have this issue and this issue and this issue. We could use some help. And I was like, wow, why is there needs to be an organization that puts these together. And so that's when I founded the nonprofit Reallocate. And it's about reallocating the resources and the expertise that we have here in the developed world to help people in low resource settings. And so we work on all sorts of projects. We work on things like that. The activation for the homeless was a whole event we put together. It's like the homeless situation in San Francisco. Can we address this? Can we use these resources to actually make a difference? And it's really about creating that kind of the conversation where people come together and can start to make things happen out of that. But there is actually one step beyond self-actualization that not a lot of people know about in this hierarchy. And that's transcendence. And transcendence is when you want to actually move beyond just doing what you want. You want to move on to helping people around you. And what I see now is I see the Burning Man project, and I see a culture as a whole. We're seeing the shift of moving into this very cooperative nature where we're kind of transcending, where we now want to take all that we've created, and we want to actually take this to the world, and we want to take it so we can help actualize the world out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Karen?
So it's challenging for me to talk about what I do because I do a lot of different things and they're all dramatically different from each other. The ball started rolling with some giant art that I made for this festival in the desert called Burning Man, and my art started getting a lot bigger. I needed a workspace that was a lot bigger. And so I happened upon, in 2005, a 6-acre warehouse that was virtually vacant. And I moved in for a couple of weeks, I built some sculpture, and I left. And the next year I got another commission for Burning Man and moved in there for a couple of months and wrapped that project up and left. And this kind of process continued. I should say this was in a very, let's say, rough part of town. There were a lot of homeless people that were trying to take tools away from us. And there was a lot of stuff I wasn't really prepared for, in addition to making giant art. And it became apparent, though, after working there for a couple of weeks or months, that other large-scale artists or people who were just trying out new ideas needed a space like this that they could work in without walls, without restrictions, without... And it was interesting, the first few couple of tenants that moved in, they asked me this question that just baffled me and I didn't know how to answer it. They said, what are the rules? And I was like, well, I don't have any of those. Maybe I should. And I was just confounded to think that there are artists who are looking for a structured thing to move into. So I realized then there are different types of artists. And after signing a lease in 2009 for the entire 6-acre space, I then started my third type of education in property management. That was vastly unexpected. The things I now know. So American Steel Studios has kind of evolved in a really organic way. We now have over 170 people there. And my property manager is telling me that I now have to park my truck someplace else because there's no more room. I was like, but I was here first. So the interesting thing is that it kind of, during certain seasons and quite frequently, has a feeling of Burning Man. I don't know how many of you have been to Burning Man. Could you just, many, some, few, no?
Show of hands, please.
Okay. So Burning Man is, in fact, a huge flat canvas if you're an artist. If you're not an artist, it's a vast long distance that you have to go across to get to the bathroom. So a lot of us ride our bikes to get to the porta potties. American Steel is kind of on that scale. There are a lot of people that will ride their bikes to get to the bathroom. And some of what has happened by way of how the space has emerged is we're kind of finding there are different colonies of people with like skills or like interests. I think of them as camps, much like at Burning Man. So this sort of culture is really resonant there, and what often will happen when you have 170 creative people in one space, it's amazing. Sometimes it's too amazing, but you have so many different skill sets and so many people trying new things for the first time. Myself, I frequently find I'm like in this thing and I don't know how to get out of it or finish it or fix it or whatever. And I know that someone like Big Jim right down on the other side of the building has the answer to know how to fix, finish, or fake it. So we have people ranging from large-scale fabricators, textiles and fashion, painting, photography, screen printing, art cars, a lot of new energy technology is developing there. It just goes on and on. The website is like a phone book in a way. So what happens when you have a 6-acre warehouse without a lot of walls inside of it and a lot of inspiration? You get to experiment with things, and through just conversing with people and understanding what people are interested in, certain things can happen, such as a desire to abate graffiti by building a living wall all around the building. And this is being done on a volunteer basis. We have people coming in who have never welded before, know nothing about rainwater catchment, know nothing about solar-powered pumps, who are just coming in to put this project together. And from this, there's some neighborhood beautification. People are learning things. We're bringing in new pollinators, and we're making our environment a little happier. We do a lot of internships with kids. We are teaching them about drought-resistant gardens. They're learning some two-dimensional painting skills, things of that sort. But it really becomes an area where anybody who wants to learn anything can do that just pretty much by walking through the door. In fact, unscripted, last week, a guy walked through the door, and he's now working for me. So, and he's so enthusiastic and he's so excited. He said, I've been looking for something like this for 20 years. And he was only intending to drive his friend to the West Coast, stay for a couple of weeks, and then go back east. Well, that's not going to happen. He's here. He came to City Hall with me last night. So that's the other part of what I do. Running a large art space comes with a lot of responsibility. In fact, a couple years ago, someone asked me, Karen, when you grow up, what do you want to be? I thought for half a second, and I said, irresponsible. Because there's a lot that is carried on my shoulders with trying to be mindful of this really huge, diverse, passionate population. With every decision that I make, I need to make sure it's in the best interest of the majority of those people. This got me involved in politics. Shocking. I'm an artist. I am speaking at places I have no business speaking. I'm talking about things I've only just kind of figured out on my own. But I'm doing it from a place of passion and for a community that I really deeply believe in. So with that comes a lot of strength and courage. There are some changes going on in the Bay Area. You were talking about real estate. Things are changing, and historically, artists get gentrified out of the places that they make cool. I am committed to not let this happen. I am committed to working with the city of Oakland and with other areas to allow them to see what artists can contribute to a community. And historically, artists shy away from politics. I'm having to bribe my tenants with beer to make them register to vote. And it's because we historically have been discounted or not included in any of these policies. There's a transiency that is part of that as well. But we're getting ready to host 3 house parties for Oakland mayoral candidates at American Steel Studios. And I'm looking at this as an opportunity for the mayor of my city to understand who we are, what we need to do what we do, what it is that we do, and what we can give back. So I'm constantly going through many costume changes a day. You know, shortly before jumping in a car to get here, I was under a welding hood. Last night I was in a welding hood and then went to City Hall. And so there's a really nimble kind of quality to my life that sometimes hurts, but it's always really, really exciting. So I think American Steel Studios has really allowed me to push a lot of boundaries that I probably would not have done just for myself. And again, that goes back to the community. When you're with a group of people that inspire you, that you believe in, and that you're either learning from or teaching, there's this intensely robust kind of relationship that happens, and you become very protective of it. You become very proud of it. And so I would say about a third of my time every week is spent doing some type of advocacy for the tenants of American Steel Studios. Leaves a bit of time for my art, a minute or two for sleeping each day, and just really trying to get, I'm trying now to get more people involved in this process, more of the artists to be less afraid of stepping into the process. But there has always been a big division. I'm on the board of the West Oakland Commerce Association. I'm on the advisory board for the Crucible. I'm one of the founding members of the Oakland Makers Group, and I don't know if you've heard about this organization yet. But these are all different avenues where, as an artist, I am stepping into a process and speaking on behalf of, I guess, my demographic, if that's how you want to call it. It's not very sexy, I know that, but it's necessary. And I've made tremendous headway. A couple of years ago, I learned about the West Oakland Specific Plan. I won't go into details. It's a horrible, long, massive document. But after looking at what they were planning, which would turn West Oakland into essentially a suburban corporate office park, I stepped in and brought a lot of my friends with me. I was like, you have got to come to these meetings with me. And inspired this process enough to have them write another chapter specifically for the arts. So a change was made there. And as an artist, it just feels impossible that you can influence public policy, but we did. Another ridiculous thing that I've done is I decided I want the Old Bay Bridge. Not for myself, but I want it to stay here. The bridge has been part of our skyline for many, many decades. It's been effectively connecting all of these communities for so long, and there's a lot of pride and attachment to it. I know this because I did 2 campaigns online. One was a change.org campaign, one was baybridgesteel.org, which is still active if you'd like to submit some thoughts. I asked some folks for some concept drawings, which I'm also still accepting. And I packaged this all up and sent it to the 9 agencies managing this process 3 weeks ago, and about 5 days ago finally got an email saying, okay, let's meet. So I feel a little victorious. I don't know what happens next. Apparently I have to start a nonprofit or an LLC or some partnership of something that's going to make this go. But I'm very excited. If anybody has knowledge about these things, I would like to know about it. But again, this is working your network. Chances are there will be some mechanism to manage the disbursement of the steel. So we can have public sculptures and civic installations all around the region that really kind of keep this bridge here at home where it was born. So hopefully by 3 o'clock on May 30th, I will know what the fate of the bridge is going to be. And I'm only asking for 600 tons. That's not a lot. It's not a lot. I was one of the founding members of Friends of Gateway Park, which is for a 200-acre space at the touchdown of the Bay Bridge, and did some consulting with the landscape designers and architects of that and really helped them get 200 tons of steel for the park. So this is just a little bit more I'm asking for. So that's kind of a part of what I do. I think through building what I hope was the biggest project of my life at Burning Man several years ago, I've really found the ability to organize and define and strengthen those areas that I need to essentially achieve what I want to achieve. And the population of American Steel, we all support each other. There's a tremendous amount of collaboration and inspiration, and we're now giving tours like 3 or 5 times a week to students and just groups of elderly folks who want to get out of their home for a while, and everybody leaves there a bit shocked and happy. It's kind of a great thing to see. That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Karen. So I think we have time left for a few discussion questions. I have a couple here that I thought just might be fun to throw out to the group and see what emerges. Burning Man, Burning Man, Burning Man, Burning Man. I hear a lot about Burning Man here. What is it about that thing in the desert that makes people want to come home and do all this crazy stuff and change the world? Is there some kind of secret sauce? What are the qualities of Burning Man that make people want to change things? And are any of those transferable to the rest of the world?
You're looking at me?
Anyone?
I've actually thought about this, studied it for a long, long time. What is it about Burning Man? What is it that transforms people? It's really an interesting question. So you want to know the secret of Burning Man? When we come to consciousness, we're born and we're raised in a society, a surrounding, and it has this reality around it that we're so used to. It's everything from the infrastructure to the social systems to all of the dynamics that make up who we are. And really what that is this kind of a box that holds us into place. At Burning Man, we've found a way to break out of that box. And what we do literally is take people's reality and we break it apart. Burning Man is a transformation engine. It has hardware and it has software. And you can adjust it and tweak it. And we've done that. We take people out to this vast, dry place, nowhere, very harsh conditions. And it strips away their luggage, the things that they have brought with them, the idea of who they thought they were. And it puts them in a community setting where they have to connect with each other. It puts them in this place where anything is possible. And in doing so, it breaks the old reality and it enables them to realize that you can create your own reality. You can do anything. If you get together with your community around you, you can create. And that's what Burning Man does. It's a transformational experience that enables people to think of anything.
Thanks. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Just to build upon that, perhaps, my take on that transformational experience as people are going through it, kind of through the timeline, is there's this kind of experience for people when the first time they come to Burning Man. And it's really hard to describe. And here's my description of it. As you show up and you're kind of surrounded by just wonder, people outside of the box has been broken. And it's a very different reality. So you're kind of like all of a sudden kind of being stripped away of everything that you know, and it's a different world. And you're like, huh, well, you know, I always wanted to kind of try maybe being a little bit more like this. And so you say something or you do something that maybe isn't quite what you've been programmed to do, and you try it. And the whole community embraces it. No one even flinches. And you're like, huh, that's interesting. That went over pretty well. Maybe I'll try a little bit more. Then you try a little bit more. And everyone's cool with it. And you try a little more. And you try a little more. And you try a little bit more. And the whole time you're just being a little bit more you. And you didn't realize it. And everyone is embracing it. Everyone's celebrating it. And this is this passage that you go through of this positive feedback loop of people helping you kind of self-select who it is that you are. And it's through that altered, little bit of altered reality, but then also just a very supportive community. And that's where all the principles are and everything to bring you to who you were. You just didn't know it.
I think one of the things that works about Burning Man is that it's not activated until you participate. It's not something you're going to experience unless you step into it. It's not like sitting at a television, which apparently none of you have, and, and having some sort of experience brought to you. You need to go into it. And once that happens and you realize you're an actor in this play, or you're a part of the cog of the wheel that's making this thing turn, I think you kind of get like giddy and high with a sense of empowerment that you can do this. And it's not something that is very abundant in our so-called boxes, because they're boxes and they have walls. And I think for me, the first time coming back from Burning Man after swearing I'd never go again, and it happens almost by default. Before you even leave Burning Man one year, you're thinking about what you're going to do next year. It's like you're just kind of being fed this enthusiasm and creativity that just grows, and you kind of can't stop it even if you wanted to.
I think also, kind of building on what Mike was saying, everybody has a gift to give to the world, to the playa, to their community, whatever it is. I think everybody has a gift. And you don't necessarily know that you have it or how to offer it until you can fully express yourself and fully self-actualize and be who you really are. And I think that what Burning Man, as other people have said, allows you to do is strip down the barriers that you've given yourself, that other people have given you, and find that person that you really are, and then realize what it is that you have to offer to the world, and realize that your particular gift to the world is unique and special and important, and that you have permission to offer it and to play with it and experiment with it at Burning Man. And then when you have those opportunities back in the default world, to be able to have a community that will also embrace you and that will support you and that will show you that, you know, your gift that you've discovered, you really need to bring it to the world. You need to give it to the world. And I think that it isn't until you can fully find yourself and express yourself that you find that gift and then you want to give it. And I think that's part of the special sauce too.
All right. Interesting. So you go to Burning Man, you get all your switches flipped, you come back, you want to do everything. One of my favorite descriptions of Burning Man is that it's a do-ocracy. Everybody just rolls up their sleeves and gets stuff done, right? But a lot of times in the real world, when you roll your sleeves up and get stuff done, you hit a wall. You get tangled up in rules and regulations. And what's the role of government out here in the, well, let's not talk about the role of government on Playa. That's a whole other thing. Right? or let me say, what can government do to assist this process of innovation, or at least get out of the way? Or what can we do to help them? I don't know.
I guess that's something I'm working on almost daily through the process of American Steel and working locally with politics. And I think here's a really simple example. It became apparent to me that the city councilwoman who I hosted a house party at American Steel when she was elected recently has never heard of Maker Faire. It's not that she's never been to Maker Faire, she's never even heard of it. So she's sitting as the councilwoman for one of the parts of the Bay Area that has a super high concentration of makers, and it just struck me as unacceptable that she didn't know what this was about. So I sent her and her family tickets to go to Maker Faire. Whether or not she actually gets there remains, like, I can't make her go, but I can warmly invite her. So I think a lot of what I'm challenged with is there's this, artists are kind of considered, and innovators to a similar degree, people who are doing things a little differently, we don't fit into the nice box. And so we're, again, not very well considered or understood in terms of what we need to do what we do. So I think it really comes down to, I won't necessarily say leading by example, but allowing what you're working on and what we're doing to get more visibility, get it out into the hands of people who are going to use it, brag about it. You know, tell your city council person or whomever it is that's challenging you that, hey, there's this great thing and I think you should know what's going on, come and check it out.
Guys, with all due respect to city governments and federal governments, recognize that a lot of times they don't necessarily have the answers and they don't have the most innovative solutions. And so provide framework, provide support, provide structure for, and provide challenges for the community to come together and be innovative. So whether that's with the example of free space, we currently have a small contract with the city of San Francisco because they saw what we were doing, they liked what we were doing, and they want to continue to enable us to do it. At the same time, we haven't filed for a single permit in almost an entire year of doing events and activities. And the reason for it is not because we're doing anything illegal. The reason for it is not because we're doing anything illegal, but because we found ways to do things that don't necessarily require government approval. So, for example, in San Francisco, you have to file for an entertainment permit if you're providing food and music, live music. And so when we've had music, we don't have food. When we have food, we don't have music. And so and so we found ways to kind of work with the system that is allowing us to exist and enabling us financially to exist, but also knows when to kind of step back and say, you're doing your thing, you're moving a lot faster than we ever could, and we appreciate that and support that. So don't break the rules, but we support what you're doing.
Quite a few years ago, I got a call from the Nevada State Tax Department or something, and they were looking at all of the alcohol sales that were happening during Burning Man time in Reno. I mean, we would go into Costco and clean out the liquor aisles completely. And so they said, you're not paying taxes on this stuff that you're selling out there. And then I told them, we're not selling anything. We're giving it away. And it was quite a shock to them.
That was outside of his box. Yeah.
So I have an idea here. Bring your kid to work day. We could do, bring your politician to Burning Man year. Just saying, throwing it out there. Bring your police chief.
Every elected official should go to Burning Man at least once.
And they do. Actually, there's a lot of city supervisors from San Francisco that go out and get the tour. Actually, my favorite is the fire marshal from Las Vegas went to Burning Man, right? You know what his response was? He's like, I need more of this in my city. So he's got like this fire display
more
policy.
Fire.
Yeah, more fire.
And that's actually happening in Las Vegas too, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, if you have questions, now is the time to write them down and pass them out to the aisle. Just pass them that way. Rebecca will pick them up. And while we're doing that, I'll just throw one more question out for the group. It sounds like a lot of these projects, all of these projects, involve pretty large teams of people. How do you go from being one person with a great idea to growing a team, nurturing a team, and building the army that it sometimes takes to pull off some of these majestic feats?
I think a lot of it is about empowerment and kind of immediately giving people agency over the project. So with the example of free space, people will come into the building, kind of look around and wonder and say, what is this place? What do you do here? And our response is, what do you want to do here? And that immediately invites them in and makes it theirs and gives them permission to paint a wall or to host a class or to lead a dance workshop or whatever it is that they can feel like they own a part of it too and that they're part of creating it too. And I think with that, using that idea, we've been able to grow our team from a handful of core organizers that are kind of running the nitty-gritty in the day-to-day to, hundreds of volunteers that will come in, and whether their contribution to the space is watering the plants every day or sweeping the floor or building new construction, putting up new shelves, there is something for everyone to do. And so recognizing that and offering that to people in line with what it is that they're passionate about and what they want to do draws people in and makes them feel like it's theirs.
I wouldn't say it's like you get to put it together and you get to have this huge team of people working for you where you're managing everyone, know what everyone's doing, you're figuring out how to pay for the whole thing, you're not sleeping at all. It's kind of a very challenging thing. And from a very practical standpoint, what I've noticed in my experience is within the community, every once in a while someone's just got that idea and they're so passionate about it that they just can't help it. And they're like, I'm going to do this. And then everyone can file in behind them, and everyone's excited to have that person step up. It's like, wow, we have that leader. We have that person that's going to take charge. And the beauty of it is it's a heck of a lot of work. But what it does is it creates this whole learning process for everyone involved. They become the ultimate teacher, and you're bringing in people they don't know how to weld, and all of a sudden they're on your welding team, and you've got to teach them how to actually go about creating it. And I personally am thrilled when one of my friends steps up and says, I'm going to do this project. I'm like, oh, thank God. I'm just going to go out there. Someone's going to tell me what to do. I'm not going to have to worry about all this other stuff. This is amazing. Thank you. I can't wait to help you. And so there is this kind of converse to the whole thing where you really do have a community of people that are just really thrilled to step up and help you carry out your dream.
I was saying just earlier today that I really missed the days when I was a volunteer and I could show up and someone could tell me what to do.
Right?
But it's kind of like a if you build it, they will come thing, because for many people, you get this wild hair and you think you're going to do this thing, and as I was saying earlier, you get stuck and you realize one person does not have all of the skills necessary to put something together, or there just aren't enough hours in the day to actually build it all together. And I just have seen, especially running American Steel for as long as I have and doing my own art for as long as I have, the communities that kind of swell around the Burning Man build season because people know there's something happening. They want to be a part of it. And there's just so many ways someone can plug in and learn something or teach something. That's the other part is sometimes there are these projects that are emerging and suddenly there's this great need that they haven't yet fulfilled. And you hope somehow to find that person or get that tool or whatever it is you need, and eventually it almost always works out. So it's really a magnetic kind of process.
Oh, and by the way, right now is the season for finding those projects. If you want to go help, they're out there. You can find them.
Okay, there are many hurdles to innovation that are basic, like money, space, and time. How do you deal with more advanced hurdles like regulations to make innovative dreams a reality? Follow-up for Dr. North, have you tried to get your bindings approved for use in the U.S.?
So the bindings currently, actually it's turned into an even more beautiful story now. We have Clark Shoes is involved, a giant injection molding company has gotten involved. So it's now all these companies are donating their time and energy to it. There are devices that work here, and it's not actually a very large market. 80% of clubfoot cases are in developing countries because it's tied to birth rates. And so actually it's the huge market opportunity. And so this market here isn't of that much interest whatsoever. So it's kind of, it's also, it's a type 3 medical device, so the approval process for it is fairly simple, if you're interested.
Okay, here's a good one. What are your playa names? We know one already. Playa names?
Civic Commando.
That's good.
I think you're next.
Oh. Well, I mean, everyone calls me North, so it kind of usually is that. But every once in a while, I get a name that sticks, so it's kind of on an annual basis. Last year, my playa name ended up being Off Duty, because when you have a camp of like 225 people, and you're the guy that knows where all the tools are, because they're in your tool shop, everyone comes to you with their issue. And it's a nonstop job, 24/7 around the clock. And it's kind of, the last place I could go to relax was my own camp. Because it's just, and I'd be hanging out their camp, I'm like, it's so nice here. What do you mean? I'm like, oh my God, you just like sit here and don't have to do anything? And they're like, what are you talking about? What's it like at your camp? I'm like, come over to my camp with me. And they're like, all right. We go over there, and there's a line of 6 people with like issues and problems to solve and needs tools. And I'm like, and they're like, oh my God. So they wrote in Sharpie all over my body, off duty. Off duty. He's off duty, all right? He's off duty. So that one works for me.
I've never had a playa name. I know.
Oh, careful what you wish for.
It's all right.
I've never really had a playa name either. You're supposed to be given one and not assign yourself one. But actually, I'm old enough to remember the first year we got radios out on playa, and we all picked animal names. So I sometimes go by Mockingbird.
Well, I remember some other situations where there were other aliases. In the Cacophony Society, when we do events, we would have aliases because we didn't want to get arrested under our real name.
We had aliases for our aliases. In fact, some of us are famous under our aliases and unknown under our real names. Among yourselves. Well, we just about run out of time here, but I'd like to thank all of our panelists. Let's give them a big round of applause. And let's not forget Rebecca Zito for bringing us all together. Thank you, Rebecca.